Welcome back to Capitol Square. We're talking what else? Money in the Buckeye State and how the state is working to get more of it through tourism bucks. We're joined today by Brad Dean, CEO of the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber of Commerce, to offer his perspective on why Ohioans are vital to our nation's tourism economy in South Carolina's, and Matt MacLaren, Executive Vice President of the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association, and we're rejoined by Joe Ingles from Ohio Public Radio and Television. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good morning. To see you.
Matt, let's put up a statistic here and just kind of build on that, get your view on it. Ohio tourism brought in $23 billion in 2009. That's approximately $13 generated from state and local tax revenue for each dollar spent. Why is it seemingly such a tough sell to get Ohio to invest in tourism programs?
Well, let's start too. $23 billion was the direct visitor spending in 2009. As an industry, as a whole, Ohio tourism is a $36 billion industry in Ohio. With the Ohio Tourism Division doing the majority of the marketing for, well, really giving Ohio its image in tourism. And it's a great return on investment. Just as you said, $13 in new. That's state sales tax dollars and local sales tax dollars brought in for every dollar spent. That doesn't include also the other taxes involved, lodging taxes and such involved with the tourism spending that come in at the local level. And then you have the money that comes into the businesses that's reinvested from those businesses, hopefully with other businesses within the state of Ohio.
Do you have, this is such a big state, and it's really split into 3 states. If you look at Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, is it difficult getting everybody on the same page and figuring out from a strategic standpoint what to target?
Well, Ohio needs an image, and that's where the State Tourism Division comes in, and they've done a wonderful job this past year with the Ohio's Too Much Fun for Just One Day campaign, encouraging people to come into Ohio and stay. They spend one day in Cleveland, spend the next day in Columbus. Don't forget Dayton, Toledo. We have a lot of great cities, a lot of great things to do here in the state. And hopefully they'll come and they'll spend several days in Ohio, spending their money with restaurants, retail, hotels, generating tax dollars to the state of Ohio and for the local cities.
You know, if you go to Myrtle Beach, Brad, just about every license plate is red, white, and blue. It's the Ohio license plate. It's changed recently, so you'll see different colors down there. But a lot of Ohioans are there. I imagine you're not really in competition with Matt or with tourism directly in the state. You're in competition for those Ohioans who simply want to go to the beach, want to go to the coast, the Atlantic Ocean. How do you compete and how do you market to convince Ohioans that Myrtle Beach is a better deal than Virginia Beach and really anywhere else along the Atlantic seaboard?
Well, Jim, you're absolutely right. We're not competing with Ohio as a destination. We're trying to capture the interest of those who are wanting to go to the coast and believe that the Myrtle Beach area can offer more affordability and value than destinations like Florida and Virginia Beach. Now, we have seen a lot more Ohio license plates and T-shirts, although sometimes I think maybe those are just South Carolinians that want to root for a good Ohio football or basketball team. You've got them. We haven't, unfortunately. But I think the challenge in this economy, particularly, is being mindful of the need for affordability and value. Everybody wants the top value for their dollar, and so in large part what we have to do is convey the value and affordability of a vacation to the Myrtle Beach area, and then also make it easier for Ohioans to get there, and that means adding direct flights and also building highways, both of which we've been doing for the past few years.
Have you noticed a decline of Ohioans, and I guess this would be across the board, but has this recession, has it been noticeable there?
You know, in South Carolina overall, I think we have noticed a slight decline in travel. Now, in the Myrtle Beach area, we've actually seen an uptick, and I think that has to do with additional marketing and also the fact that Myrtle Beach is one of the more affordable destinations on the East Coast. So in tough economic times, when families are looking to save money, Myrtle Beach becomes an alternative they might not have considered before.
One other statistic I want to put up here, $5.4 million was restored for tourism for 2010. Now that funding had been eliminated from the budget last year. When that happened, as that debate goes on, does that make you nervous? What word is not getting to lawmakers and what have you about the importance of spending that money?
Well, when we saw the zero for the tourism division, it did make us nervous. Fortunately, the Department of Development did restore the funding. They used $5.4 million from discretional funding. Traditionally, the tourism division's been around $7 to $8 million. Last year, it was at 5.1. We know it's tough times for the state, and they have a crunch budget, but we were happy to see it be restored at 5.4, and we're hopeful that it will have more money here in the future. Quite honestly, our legislators and our governor and his directors have very tough decisions right now because they have limited resources during this recession. However, we're very adamant that tourism, spending in tourism, has one of the best return on investments and quickest return on investments. You do a marketing campaign today, you start seeing people coming into the state almost immediately, spending their money with the state, generating tax dollars for the next months, years to come. And that's the message.
It is kind of interesting. South Carolina could be, Brad, a model, because the folks there in the state capital seem to view tourism and recognize it as the economic engine. In other words, the coastal area kind of generates the money for the rest of the state. It's a unique partnership.
Well, tourism is big business in South Carolina. It is our largest industry. It's our largest employer. And even though it's made up of small businesses throughout the state, we face some of these same challenges in South Carolina, Jim. And as Matt said, it's clearly a challenge of explaining to state legislators and your governor and the administration that tourism is part of your state's budget solution, not part of the problem. And I think sometimes if you're not familiar with tourism, you just assume that it goes on naturally. And to Joe's point earlier, you have to go out and convey to people what you have to offer and why they need to travel to your destination or your state. When you do that, tourism creates jobs and brings money in. It really can be one of your greatest exports, which you have to remember is you're exporting memories and smiles.
Right. The only time we complain is when we're down at the State House and it's January, right? And we talk about putting the beach motif up there, cranking the heat to 85 degrees and putting in a fake palm tree.
You know, it's kind of like throwing a ball and just getting a slam dunk because, you know, people here in January, they're sick of shoveling snow. They're sick of being cold. And the minute someone puts a beach in front of them on TV, they're like, I'm there. Give me the information. I'm there.
Now, Jim, I found that the snow in Ohio is actually a great marketing technique for us. We capitalize upon that. That's usually the kickoff of our advertising campaign.
And do you see an increase? I mean,
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when the northern states go into their winter school days, we can see the rise in people thinking about planning their next vacation. But yeah, you ask about marketing. I think one of the things we've found is, first of all, you've got to research. You have to understand what the consumer wants and needs. And nowadays, one of the things we've seen, and I'm sure Matt's association sees this readily quite often, and that is that the booking cycle is so much different. It used to be months ahead. People now make decisions days and weeks ahead, which means you have to be certainly on target and more adaptable to that quicker reaction time. And for us, that means being able to deliver information over the web and on TV much quicker than we used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that right now. By the way, we like to steal back all of those winter birds in the summer with our great summer and spring and fall weather too. But yeah, you're seeing it right now. Leisure travelers especially, it's days that they'll make their trip plans and book and come to the state versus months.
Matt, we have seen a dip though. I looked at some of the individual counties, some of them across the state, as far as their hotel expectations. A little off last year. That's a sign of the economy, right? Is there an expectation that this economy breaks and it begins to come around the corner, that those numbers will back up?
Well, the most recent news has been good. The most recent statistics, June, for example, 8% more people stayed in hotels in Ohio this June versus June a year ago. And we're seeing that really continue. We're hoping July will be the same. Things are getting better out there.
Good.
Yeah, and when you look at Ohio and you look at some of the things that are not marketed in other places, you were just hitting on it, the Hocking Hills, hiking, and, you know, being able to have a certain amount of simplicity here in the summer and those kind of things. You know, once people discover that, I think that you see a lot of people come back year after year after year in the summer. I notice that, you know, friends, people who continue to come back, and is it hard to keep them coming back once they discover the draw here in the summer?
Getting them here is the hardest part. Once you see Ohio and you start to experience and enjoy some of our great attractions, great accommodations, we do like to see that repeat guest, and you do see it.
Matt, are you concerned with looking at an $8 billion problem in the state budget next year, that tourism once again is going to be front and center on the chopping block?
Yeah, we are concerned, and we've already started meetings. We being myself, the head of the Restaurant Association, Travel Association, Convention and Visitors Bureau Association, meeting with the Department of Development and the governor's office. We know they see the value of tourism, and we're hopeful. We're concerned, but we're hopeful that tourism will be funded at a good level next year.
Brad, we just have a minute left, but let me ask you from South Carolina's perspective, how, when you watch the Gulf oil spill, initially there was concern that that spill was going to wrap around and come into the Carolinas. Did you notice a decline at that particular time, and has that affected the economy in any way?
We have been very fortunate not to be impacted. Thankfully, the only oil we've got on our beach is Hawaiian Tropic right now, and it's devastating what's happened in the Gulf. We deal with hurricanes, but at least with a hurricane, you know when it's coming, you know when it's leaving, and you just have to deal with the in-between. We've been very fortunate not to have to deal with that, and you know, we haven't seen the full scope of that damage yet, Jim, but I think it's certainly paid note all throughout the coast of South Carolina about the challenge of offshore drilling and whether or not we really want offshore drilling when tourism is your #1 industry.
And even in that drill baby drill time period, your mayor was pretty adamant to his fellow Republican senators not to offshore drill.
Yeah, drilling for natural gas, one thing, drilling for oil, they need to do that in onward or somewhere else, not along the coast of South Carolina.
Okay, Matt, Brad, good to see both of you. Tourism great in both places. And good to see you, Brad, proud sponsor of Capital Square. Keep that up. All right, I want to thank all the guests today. Joe Ingles, as always, good to see you. We'd like to hear from you. Just email us or Facebook and